Hey guys, and welcome back. It's week 2 of distance learning, and we are going to start by solving quadratics by factoring. You'll remember that factoring is actually something that we did last unit. So what you want to look at is how do we factor what is written on the left of this equation. I've written out some steps for you so that hopefully that'll help you see what all you should go through every time you do some of these problems. So the first one is make sure that the equation is set equal to 0. Check, we have that, we have that done here. Then step 2, you want to factor it. So remember factoring for this, first thing you do is look for a GCF. There isn't one between 2, 5, and -3. Well, 2, -5, and -3. So then we draw the box and we write 2x squared here, -3 here. 2 times -3 is -6. So we need factors of -6 that add to -5. So factors of 6 are 1 and 6. 2 and 3. But remember, they need to multiply to get -6 and add to get -5, which means one of them is negative and one of them is positive. And since we need a negative in the middle, that means that our negative is actually going to be -6 and +1. So this is going to be -6x and +1x. And then remember, we are looking for the GCF in each column and each row. So in between 2x squared and 1x, what is our GCF? What do those two things have in common? Well, they only have in common an x. Between -6x and -3, what do they have in common? A -3. Between 2x squared and -6x, what do they have in common? A 2x. Between 1x and -3, the only thing they have in common is a +1. So then our factors are 2x plus 1 times x minus 3. And remember, it doesn't matter what order you write these in. And that still equals 0. Then the third step says, set each factor equal to 0 and solve for x. So the reason for that is to multiply two numbers together and get 0, it means that one of them has to be 0. And in order to figure out what x value will make that set of parentheses 0, we set it equal to 0, and then we solve. So you want to set each set of parentheses equal to 0, and then you want to solve for your x. So this solving is still the same basic mathematical work that we've done before. So you minus 1 on both sides. 2x equals -1, divide by 2. So x equals -1/2. And then here we'll add 3 on both sides. So x equals 3. So x can either equal 3 or x can equal -1/2. And both of those answers will give us 0 if x is either of those values. Okay, so let's use those steps to do a few more practice problems. So the very first thing is to make sure it's set equal to 0. So on number 1, we're good with that. Is there a GCF between 5, 17, and 6? Not that I can think of, and there isn't one. So we want to go ahead and draw our box. So we have 5x squared and 6. 5 times 6 is 30. So I need factors of 30 that add to 17. So all of my factors are 30. So 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 5 and 6. But I can clearly see that I'm going to be using 2 and 15, and they're both going to be positive because I need a positive 30 and I need a positive 17. So I'm going to have 2x, still haven't gotten better at writing on this, and 15x. All right, then I want to look for my GCF in each row and column. So between 5x squared and 2x, the only thing I have in common is an x. Between 15x and 6, the only thing I have in common is a 3. 5x squared and 15x, I have a 5x. 2x and 6, I have a 2. So therefore, my factors are 5x plus 2 and x plus 3. Then I need to set them both equal to 0 and solve. So 5x plus 2 equals 0, x plus 3 equals 0, and solve for x. Minus 2, 5x equals -2, divide by 5. X equals -2/5. And then here we subtract 3 on both sides. X equals -3. Perfect. Done. All right, let's look at number 2. So number 2 has a small issue. It is not equal to 0. So what do I need to do to move the 60 to the other side to make it equal to 0? Well, I need to minus the 60 on both sides. Then I have 5x squared plus 20x minus 60 equals 0. So first thing I want to do is look for a GCF. Do I have a GCF? Actually, we do on this one. So what is my GCF? It's 5. Remember, we divide that 5 out of each thing. So then we're left with x squared plus 4x minus 12 equals 0. So then we can leave the 5 on the very, very outside while we factor this inside. So we have x squared, negative 12. So then I need my factors of negative 12 that are going to give me positive 4. So factors of 12, 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. So the only ones I can use are going to be 6 and 2. So let's look at our signs, though, because we need a negative 12. So that means that one of them is going to have to be negative, but I need a positive 4. So that means I need to do 6 minus 2. So I'm going to have a negative 2x and a positive 6x. Still looking for my GCF in each row and column. So between x squared and negative 2x, the only thing in common is an x. Between 6x and negative 12, the thing in common is a 6. Between x squared and 6x, I have an x in common. Between negative 2x and negative 12, I have a negative 2 in common. So then my final factored form becomes 5, parentheses, x minus 2, x plus 6 equals 0. But here, remember, I told you your goal is to solve for x. So we need to get rid of that 5. So mathematically, how do I get rid of that 5 since it's multiplying by everything on there? Well, guess what? You just divide by it on both sides and it's gone. It disappears because 0 divided by any number is 0. And then these 5s on the left cancel out. So we're left with x minus 2 and x plus 6 both equal 0. So now we can do the same thing that we did last time and set x minus 2. Sorry, I'm trying to give myself a little bit more space. We can set this. Gotta get my pen back. All right. We can set this. Ooh, I have a nice new color. We can set x minus 2 equal to 0 and x plus 6 equal to 0. All right, so then add 2, add 2. So x equals 2 and minus 6, x equals negative 6. So those are my two answer options. Sorry, I'm changing out some of these crazy colors. Okay, making it a little bit more fun so that I can have a little bit more useful colors because it gives me yellow, which is useless. All right, so these are my nice new answers. And then these are my answers here. Okay. All right, let's look at these next few that we have. Yet again, this first one starts off with the same issue as before. It is not set equal to 0. So we want to minus that 15x on both sides. And you want to make sure that you actually put these in order here. You want to put that minus 15x in the middle. Go ahead and draw these down. Take over all my space. So you want to make sure that minus 15x is in the middle so that it is in the correct spot for factoring. You want to look for a GCF. We don't have one. Draw a box. X squared, 36. Factors of 36 that add to negative 15. So if they need to add to negative 15, it means they're both going to be negative. So we have 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9, 5, 6 and 6. Okay. So if we need 15 and they both have to be the same sign, that means they're both going to be negative, and it's going to be negative 3 and negative 12. So negative 3x and negative 12x. And then we're looking for our things in common. So if we're looking for things in common here, what do we have in common between x squared and negative 3x? Well, we have an x. Between negative 12x and 36, we are going to actually take out a negative 12 here. And remember, if those ones that we wrote in that didn't come with our equation, if they were negative, we have to pull out the negative. Okay, let's look at the next ones. X squared and negative 12x. We have an x in common. Negative 3x and 36, we're going to use the negative 3. So then we are left with x minus 12 and x minus 3 all equal to 0. So then we take each of those sets of parentheses and we set it equal to 0. So x minus 12 equals 0 and x minus 3 equals 0 and solve. So x equals 12 and x equals 3. Those are my two answers. All right, let's look at number 4. And then the next two after this, I am going to ask you to try on your own so that you can get a little bit of practice, and I will go over them. Okay, so let's look here, and we don't see a GCF, so we can go ahead and start trying to factor this. So go ahead and fill it into the box. X squared, negative 72. So I need to look at factors for 72. So 1 times 72, 2 times 36, 3 times, I don't even know, I'm going to have to use my calculator. 24. Well, I don't think it goes before actually. Oh, yep, 4 and 18. Is 2 and 3 go in there? 6 goes in there. So 6 and 12. This is one of those ones that has a ton of them. 5 doesn't go in there. So 5, 6, 7 doesn't go in there. 8 times 9. There we go. All right. So that should be all of them. So now we want to see which of those we can use to get 6. But remember, this is actually going to be a negative 72. Sorry, I missed that negative there. So that means one of them needs to be positive and one of them needs to be negative. So if we need 6, that means we're going to need to subtract them to get the 6. So that means we're going to use 6 and 12. We need a positive 6, so we need to do 12 minus 6. So negative 6x and positive 12x. Then we want to look and see, okay, what do they have in common in each row and column? X squared and 6x, they have an x in common. 12x and 72, they have a 12 in common. X squared and 12x, they have an x in common. Negative 6x, negative 72, they have a negative 6. So x plus 12 and x minus 6 are my factors, so they equal 0. So then we set both of them equal to 0. And then last but not least, we solve. And there we go. Oh, this supposed to be negative 12. Sorry, I missed my sign. Negative 12 and positive 6. Here we go. Okay, last two. Hopefully you already tried these, so you can just check your work. So we are going to see that there's no GCF. So we're going to go ahead and draw our box. So we have 2x squared and negative 14. 2 times negative 14 is negative 28. So 1 and 28, 2 and 14. Nope, not 3, 4 and 7. And that's it. So if it's negative 28, that means one of them needs to be negative, one of them needs to be positive, and we need negative 3. So that means we're going to use 4 and 7, and it's going to be a negative 7 and a positive 3. So negative 7x, positive 4x. So then I want to look for what is in common between each row and column. So 2x squared and 4x, I get 2x. Negative 7x and negative 14, I get a negative 7. 2x squared and negative 7x, I get just an x. 4x and negative 14, I get a 2. So then I am left with 2x minus 7 and x plus 2 equals 0. So then I take each of them and set them equal to 0. And solve. And solve this one over here. And then I have both of my answers. All right, last but not least, number 6. All right, so I look at it and it's not equal to 0, so I need to go ahead and minus the 12 on both sides. So I get 3x squared plus 5x minus 12 equals 0. So now I look and see, does it have a GCF? Well, 3, 5, and negative 12 do not have GCFs. So we're going to go ahead and draw our box. And we're going to write in our pieces. 3x squared, negative 12. And then we are going to say 3 times negative 12 is negative 36. And we want to get our factors of 36. So 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9, 6 and 6. So if we need to get 5, that means, and we need a negative 36, one of them is positive, one of them is negative. So we're going to use 4 and 9, but we're going to have a negative 4 and a positive 9 because 9 minus 4 is 5. So 9x and negative 4x. So then we're looking for what is in common on each column and row. So on the first one, 3x squared and negative 4x. The only thing in common is an x. 9x and 12, we have a 3 in common. 3x squared and 9x, we have a 3x in common. Negative 4x and negative 12, you have a negative 4. So then you are left with x plus 3 times 3x minus 4 equals 0. We can then take each set and set it equal to 0 and solve, and then we are finished. There we go. Done. I hope this made a lot of sense to you. We are going to do more practice problems during class, so hopefully you do understand what's going on.